Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are diving into a piece of feedback that can really stop a promising career in its tracks. You need to think more strategically. We're going to use the guide from the experts over at Harvard Business Review to break down what that actually means and what you can do about it.
So, let's set the scene. Imagine you're in your performance review. You've been doing great work, your team is hitting all its numbers, and you're thinking, okay, it's time for that promotion. And then your boss hits you with it. You need to learn to think more strategically. It's one of those things that sounds really important, but also, what does it even mean? It's just so vague.
Right? So what are you supposed to do with that? How do you turn that fuzzy feedback into something you can actually work on? Well, that's exactly what we're going to tackle today. We're going to take this big, abstract idea and turn it into a clear, actionable set of tools you can start using right away.
Here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll talk about why that be more strategic feedback is so common and frustrating. Then, we'll get a real definition for strategic thinking. From there, we'll jump into the 6 skills you need, the mindset of a strategic leader, and wrap it all up with a practical game plan for you.
Okay, so let's start with what I call the be more strategic problem. It's a roadblock a lot of really talented people hit, and just understanding why it's so annoying is the first step to getting past it.
The real issue here is this weird disconnect. You are excellent at your job. You get things done, you manage your team, you hit your targets. On paper, you're a rock star. And yet, you're being told that something's missing. That gap between being great at your day-to-day job and being seen as a real leader, that's where strategic thinking lives.
So, let's figure out what it actually takes to get across that gap. Making the leap from a solid manager to a strategic leader is all about lifting your head up from the daily grind to see the whole playing field.
Now, this definition from HBR is really simple, but also pretty powerful. See, strategic thinking isn't about predicting the future. It's really about 2 things: making your perspective wider and your time frame longer. You start asking questions like, okay, how will this decision impact not just my team next week, but the whole company next year?
And why is this such a big deal? Well, the payoff is huge. When you think strategically, you're not just ticking boxes, you're actually creating real value. You make sure all the hard work your team does is pushing the company's biggest goals forward. You make smarter, more future-proof decisions, and you get everyone focused on the stuff that really truly matters. This is how you go from being a manager to being a leader who drives incredible results.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. The Harvard Business Review research breaks strategic thinking down into 6 core skills that anyone can learn. This is the how-to part.
Now, these skills all build on one another. First, you have to anticipate. Look outside your own world for changes and opportunities. Second, you have to challenge the status quo. Ask, why do we do it this way? Third, interpret. You got to connect the dots when you have messy, conflicting info. Fourth, you have to decide, making the tough call even when you don't have all the facts. Fifth is to align people, because a brilliant strategy is useless if no one's on board. And finally, number 6 is to learn. Treat every single outcome, good or bad, as a chance to get smarter. The key is, these skills work together like a complete system for handling uncertainty.
But here's the thing. Just having the skills isn't quite enough. You also have to cultivate the right mindset. And it turns out, the best strategic leaders are always juggling this creative tension between 2 competing but totally essential qualities.
This little matrix just nails that tension. On one side, you've got consistency, being reliable and getting things done. On the other, you've got agility, the ability to adapt and change course. You can see the danger zones, right? Too little of both and you're just unreliable. Too much consistency and you become rigid. Too much agility and you're all over the place, totally unfocused. The sweet spot, that place you want to be, is in that top right box, being both highly agile and highly consistent. That's where strategic magic happens.
Think of it this way. A company that's all consistency but no agility is the one that perfects the horse and buggy just as the first car is rolling off the assembly line. And a leader who's all agility but no consistency, that's the person with a million brilliant ideas who never actually finishes anything. Real strategic leadership is about doing both, executing perfectly on today's plan while also being ready to pivot for tomorrow.
So we've defined it, we've learned the skills, and we've got the mindset. Now let's bring it all home and talk about how you actually put this stuff into practice.
This is basically your to-do list. First, get obsessed with understanding your company's biggest goals. Then, in every meeting and for every project, ask yourself, how does this connect to that big picture?
Start making decisions that are good for the whole company, not just your team. Get really good at saying no to things that aren't a top priority. Make sure your team knows the why behind their work. And finally, go out and build relationships with people outside your bubble. They're the ones who will show you what's coming next.
Look, thinking strategically isn't some secret gift you're born with. It's a set of skills and a mindset that you can practice and get better at. It's all about making a conscious effort to shift your view from the urgent to the important, from the small picture to the big one. So think back to those 6 skills we covered: anticipate, challenge, interpret, decide, align, and learn. Which one of those will you deliberately work on this week? Because your answer to that question is your first real step on the path to becoming a true strategic leader.